Welcome, everyone, to a condensed version of what would be a podcast. Unfortunately, yesterday, due to scheduling situations, we weren't able to go live, but I figured after the result yesterday, it was best to at least get something out there. So I wanted to quickly just touch on the result yesterday, the performance, and some topics that I've seen a lot of people talking about on social media. But before I get started, as always, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe. Getting into yesterday's match, Benfica 0, Salzburg 2, match day 1 of the 23-24 edition of the Champions League, and we come away with a result that most, if not anyone, would have expected. I think we all expected a pretty competitive game, a pretty open game, considering Salzburg likes to play a pretty offensive style of football, very open. They put a lot of guys in the final third, very good in transition, and I think we saw a lot of that yesterday. Now, a game of two faces. First 15 minutes and the remaining 75. Benfica came out terribly. We didn't react well to the pressure. They were making things extremely difficult for us. We couldn't get out of the back. We had a variety of misplaced passes. We had a couple of players that looked like they just had never played a Champions League match before. And then after the red card, the team seemed to be able to grab hold of the match and level things out a little bit better. We, in my opinion, seemed to bring our lines together, creating less space in between, which made things a little bit more difficult for Salzburg to actually get out in transition and get guys forward into that final third and create opportunities. The beginning of the match didn't start well for Trubin, for Antonio Silva. Ba had some mistakes. So there was a variety of errors that we're not used to, which essentially dictated the outcome of the game. I think that even though we were down to 10, I thought we were the better side for 95% of the time that we were down to 10. We created more opportunities. We had more possession of the ball. We had more shots on target. We created half the fouls that Salzburg created, which you would assume that down to 10 men, Benfica would have resorted to a little bit more of a physical approach to stop those transitions, stop those counterattacks. And the reality is that the numbers don't lie, and that wasn't the case. We committed 9 fouls. Salzburg created 19. Possession-wise, we had more possession in the second half than we did in the first half. I don't recall Trubin making any difficult or awkward saves. I believe the second goal that they scored may have been the second opportunity that they had, apart from the penalty. At the end of the day, obviously stats don't mean anything. What matters is the final result, and unfortunately we were on the wrong end of that result. I think the performance says otherwise. I think with a little bit of fortune, if one of those opportunities of the variety of ones that we created goes in, I think Benfica at the very least comes away with a draw. Potentially even turns that game around. Again, I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty impressed with the way that the team reacted. They didn't put their head down. They didn't pack it in. We stayed true to the way we play, and we kept going forward. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see that we created a variety of chances. I think going down 1-0 in past situations, maybe we would have sat back and tried to play on the counterattack and been a long 75 or 80 minutes of just desperation of holding on and then trying to counterattack. And I didn't see that. I saw a team that was true to themselves, that continued to stay high up the field, tried to eliminate those transitions for Salzburg, which I thought they did well, and created, 3, 4, 5 clear-cut chances to score, even with 10 men. And unfortunately, just if one of those goes in, like I said, I think the story is completely different, even with 10 men. But unfortunately, that's just the way sports is, right? Sometimes you get those lucky bounces, sometimes you get those fortunate moments, and other times it felt like we could have played another 90 minutes and we wouldn't have put the ball in the back of the net. That's just, we've had our fair share of those in the past. It's not going to be our last one, but at least let's hope that it's our last one for quite a long time. We're 0 points after one match day. We got 5 remaining. It's a pretty balanced group. It's not because of one negative result that I'm going to lose confidence in this team being able to come out of this group. I still think that we come out of this group, whether that's first or second place will really depend on the next 2 to 3 games. We go away to Inter. We have Sociedad at home. So I think getting at least 4 points out of the next 2 games, I think will be important. If we only get 3, I still think we still have fate in our own hands. But again, it's a very balanced group. I think we have the opportunity to go to Salzburg after what I saw yesterday to get 3 points. But again, between now and all those matches, there's a lot of things that could happen. Injuries, moments of form, psychological thing. Like there's a lot that plays into it. So we'll just see how it plays out. But again, I have no lack of confidence or any concern at the moment that we won't be able to get out of this group again, whether it's in first place or second place. Moving on to another topic of discussion, Trubin, a hugely discussed topic for the last 2 months. The way that Odyssey has left the club, we went and spent money on Trubin, something like 9 million or 10 million or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of expectation that's created around him. I think a lot of that expectation comes from social media experts, and I use that term loosely. And also there were many goalkeeping coaches and many assistant coaches that worked with Trubin at Shakhtar that shared their opinion on him and kind of his potential. The consensus is that he's a very good goalkeeper, a goalkeeper that is surely one of the most promising in Europe. He was definitely highly sought after by a variety of European teams. Benfica ended up winning that battle. But I think we all need to be conscious of the fact that he's a future project, right? He's not coming in, mature. He's not coming in at a state where he's just, undeniably one of the top keepers at the moment, right? It's going to take some time. It's going to take some games under his belt. It's going to need some confidence, right? And he's coming into a situation where it's a new language, it's a new country, it's a new team, it's a different dynamic, right? And he's got to learn all those pieces. And some of you may look at that and say those are excuses. But sure, you can look at them as excuses, but they're facts, right? It's a fact that he's in a new country. It's a fact that he's in a country that he doesn't speak the language. It's a fact that it's a new team and different dynamic. Like those are all facts. Whether you want to paint it as an excuse or not is indifferent to me. Did he have a negative performance yesterday? 100%. No one can deny that, right? But I think it's ridiculous that a lot of fans are essentially burying him because he had a bad performance, right? He didn't look good. He started off with that penalty, which was, he timed it poorly. And you can't deny that it's a penalty, right? He just had a bad start to the game. And then all of a sudden, I feel like that just snowballs and makes things difficult. His first game at the club against Vizela, he was essentially a bystander. Didn't really have to do much, at least with his hands. He had 1 save in the second half, fairly comfortable. Throughout the match, he had a lot of touches on the ball with his feet, but again, nothing under pressure, nothing difficult. And then he gets hit with a penalty in the second half, right? Which first goal you concede, penalty. Okay, we ended up coming out on top of that game, but it wasn't a game that, again, we were up against the ropes or, it was nervy. So it was a fairly comfortable one for him. Comes into his second game within the first 15 minutes at his new home stadium in front of his own fans in the Champions League. He's faced with 2 penalties. His team's down to 10 men. He concedes one of the penalties, right? Like, and naturally that's going to impact you at the age of 22. Again, given the context of everything that he's into. Is he going to turn out to be the keeper that people are saying that he can be? I don't know. Time's going to tell, right? But I think it's ridiculous to start making comparisons to Odysseas or whoever else may be, right? Odysseas, I'm honestly sick of talking about the topic. He's not at the club anymore. He gave us 5-6 good years. Was he a top goalkeeper? No. Was he the worst? No. Did he have areas where he could have improved? Yes. Is Trubin going to go through that same development? Yes. But we need to give it time. And I think it's just ridiculous that some fans were whistling him or booing him at the stadium yesterday. That's not going to help. What comes to mind is Svilad, that game against Manchester United at home where he made a mistake and it felt like he never really grabbed hold of the potential that people said he could, because I think just mentally his mind wasn't there. And I think, unfortunately, some Benfica fans are very married to their ideas. And there are a lot of fans that weren't sold on Audi in the sense of they didn't think he was a top goalkeeper, but he was enough, but were indifferent about him. And because of the way that he exited the club, now all of a sudden have become his biggest advocates and all of a sudden have this hatred towards a goalkeeper that had nothing to do with the situation, right? But all of a sudden we've now projected that frustration onto him, which he had nothing to do with, right? And I think it's terrible. It's a terrible mindset. That's my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I think us burying him at this moment and us not giving him that confidence is not going to make things better, right? And for me, if you're a Benfica fan, yes, we have our preferences. Yes, we think this player is better. I like that player. Fine. But I think as a whole, we need to support the team, and booing a goalkeeper after his second match, given the context of everything, I think is just a recipe for disaster. I hope that he's able to come out on top and he ends up showing the potential that everyone, at least the assistants that have worked with him, say that he has. But again, time's going to tell. I just hope that he doesn't end up getting burnt by the fans because of the pressure. I think I'm a very big believer in, if you're a professional, you need to be able to handle this pressure from the outside, and time will tell. One other note on him is people criticize Roger Schmidt for coming out publicly and stating that Odyssey has had a not so positive performance against Boavista, and he stayed true to himself. And yesterday he came out and said similar about Trubin. He said he didn't have a good performance. He looked nervous, right? It's going to come with the process. Now, I guess time will tell if Trubin turns around and becomes frustrated as well. The goal, and I think we all understand that Trubin was the choice for the future, given the fact that Audi is gone. I think we need to stop with this comparison to Odysseus and stop with this agenda of like, oh, we let go of Audi because of this, that, and the other thing. And now he's 2 games in. Let's let him progress. Let's let him develop, see what comes of it. Right. And if at the end of the day, we realize that he wasn't any better than Odysseus, then so be it. But because of a situation between the manager and a previous goalkeeper, I think it's ridiculous for us to project that frustration onto a goalkeeper. And essentially, and I feel the sense that there's a lot of fans that are hoping that Trubin doesn't pan out and hoping that Trubin does poorly for them to be able to turn around and say, see, told you so. He shouldn't have let him go. He shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done that. And I think that's ridiculous. For me, that's not a Benfica fan. You're basically hoping for a negative output to be able to defend your opinion. Final topic that I wanted to touch on is Roger Schmidt. Listen, this guy, there was a lot of people that didn't want him international manager. There's a reason why Benfica has won more titles with international managers than they have with Portuguese managers. He's got 62 matches as a Benfica manager. He's got 77% win ratio, 48 wins, 7 losses, 7 draws, 155 goals, 56 goals against. The team's got an identity. We play high press. We score a lot of goals. We're very good in transition. Last year, he lost against Inter Milan, who was the runner-up in the Champions League. He lost to Chaves in a ridiculous match. He lost to Braga twice, once in the league, once in the Taça, and he lost to Porto. I don't think I'm missing anyone. Right? We went and tied PSG. We had the results against Juventus. Right? So, and in years past, we've had times where we've gone away to these matches against these big clubs, and we've basically just packed it in and just hoped for the best on a counterattack, right? And I didn't see that last year, right? I think we stay true to ourselves. We have an identity. We have a way of playing, and we look to do that every game, right? And I think for me, that's the mentality of a big club, right? I think a lot of times we've run into situations where, we go and play away to one of these big clubs, and it's like, shit, right? Let's go into it with the mindset of just don't get smashed, right? And hope for a lucky transition. And at the end of the day, you end up getting smashed either way, right? So you end up playing for a draw at the very least, and you end up losing regardless, right? And I think with Roger Schmidt, I don't think we've seen that mindset. I don't think we've seen the idea of, all right, that team's better than us. Let's just sit back and hope for the best, right? It's no, right? Like, we have our strengths. Let's play to our strengths. Let's stay true to ourselves, with a few different nuances and a few different changes. But in the most part, right, we're looking to play offensive football, to not sit back and not defend, and see what it gets us, right? And it gave us the Portuguese League. We got the Supertaça this year. We got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League last year, and I'm hoping that we can build on that this year for sure. This year we lost to Boavista away. We lost to Salzburg yesterday. The common denominator in both of those games, we were down to 10 men. Again, it's not an excuse. We made mistakes. Against Boavista, we made mistakes that cost us. Against Salzburg, we made mistakes that cost us, right? And those are things that we're going to have to get out of our game, right? Mistakes happen, but we need to be better at that, right? If we want to be a top team, if we want to compete at the highest level, if we want to compete for titles, we can't be conceding, amateur mistakes as we did yesterday, as we did against Boavista. right? We need to cut those out. It's still early in the season. Again, every loss has its certain impact, especially in the Portuguese league, where you can't lose too many points because it's pretty top heavy. I do believe that this Portuguese league this season is going to be a little bit more balanced than it has been in years past, just given the level of competitiveness across a few more teams. So I think that, that loss sucked against Boavista, but I think that it's not going to have as much of an impact as it maybe would have, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, because it was more top heavy, in my opinion. Questioning Roger Schmidt, again, similar to the Trubin situation, I think that there's this situation being created around the manager of, because I don't agree with a decision that he made, because I don't agree or understand because he put this player in or that player in, that there's this kind of ambiance being created around him of everything he does is going to be criticized. Everything he decides is going to be criticized. Listen, we're all managers, outside of the four lines, right? He's the one, and his staff are the ones that are working with the players day in and day out. They see what they're putting in practice. He has coaching staff that does analysis on the opponents. They got medical staff that are telling him this player's fit, this player can play this many minutes, this player's in risk of getting hurt. There's so much that goes on in the background that we're not privy to. Again, we're all entitled to our opinion. I have my own opinions of, right, I think this guy should play. I think that guy should play. I think we should play differently. I think that this guy should come in. But it doesn't turn me to the point where I'm like, he's an idiot. He should be gone. He's killing the team. He's not right. Like, I just think we go from one extreme to the other. And I think it creates a terrible environment around it. Yesterday, the stadium calling for Ned is, right. Like, again, there's certain moments of the game. He understands the philosophy of what they're looking to get at. The team wasn't playing bad. We were creating chances. Again, there's this situation that's similar to with the Audi situation. Ned is right. Like, there's this obsession with Ned, and I like him. I think he did well. He started the season well. He got hurt. Then he kind of struggled to get back into form this season. He hasn't had too many minutes. He came against Estrela Amadora, turned the game on its head, which was great. And then the other times that he's come in, he hasn't had as much of an impact, right? And every game is different, right? There's going to be games where he can come in and he's going to, turn it on its head. There's going to be other games that he's going to come in. He's not going to be as impactful. But again, those are moments of the game. Every game's different. The approach to every game is going to be different depending on how each team sets up. Now, if you ask me, does it make sense for Benfica to play with Ned, against a team that sits back and they're not going to counterattack very often? Sure. On the surface, it looks like that, right? But again, they have analysts that are looking at these teams and figuring out, okay, how do they come out from the back, right? What areas of the field do we need to defend on, right? Who are they going to look to expose? It's that, right? Like, there's a ton of analytics that goes into this that we're not privy to, right? So again, while we can have our opinion, I think it's ridiculous that a stadium is calling for a player to create. Again, we're creating this negative environment around something, right? Where, like, I feel like it's going to end up turning into something bad, right? I feel like there's a lot of people that are sitting in the background hoping for Roger Schmidt to fail. They're hoping for a few negative performances, right? So they can come out and say, listen, like, he did what he did in the first season. We shouldn't have renewed with him. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done this. And for me, again, those aren't Benfica fans, right? Like, whether I like someone or not, I'm never going to go against the mindset of, like, I want Benfica to win. Whether I like you or not is indifferent. I wasn't a big fan of Gonçalo Ramos, right? But, like, he scored goals. We won games. Great, right? Do I still think he's, as good as people painted him to be? I don't think so. Time will tell, right? But I'm not sitting in the background, like, waiting for him to, like, have a shitty game to be like, yes, we lost, and now I can go and push my, like, I want Benfica to win, whether it's with guys that I like or whether it's with guys that I don't like. It's indifferent to me. As long as we win is what I care about. So I just hope that we don't create this negative environment around the manager where it ends up being toxic, and it ends up creating some tension between him and the fans, which we know won't end up turning out well. We had that situation with JJ. It ended up turning into the same situation with Rui Vitória. Bruno Lage came in on a pedestal. He ended up walking out the back door. So I feel like we have a significant pattern, a consistent pattern of seeing this at Benfica, which is unfortunate. And we can't have a revolving door of managers. He came in, again, 77% win ratio since he's been at the club. Is there areas to improve? In our opinion, of course, there always are. Whether that's from tactical approaches, whether that's decision making, whether that's rotation of players, there's always going to be areas that we can improve on, as a team, as the management of the club, as the manager of the team, as fans. I think there's always areas for us to be able to improve, but overall, I don't see it as much as a panic mode as a lot of other fans do. I feel like there's a lot of either we're 0 or 100. I feel like there's a lot of fans that there's no in between. For me, I like to look at it game by game, right? Yesterday we had an unfortunate result. I don't think the performance was that bad, but it is what it is. We lost. We're on to Portimonense this weekend. Hopefully we can bounce back, and we'll see how it goes. And then we got Porto the following week, and then we got away to Inter. So we got a couple of weeks that are going to be challenging, that are going to be telling of what this team's got, and we'll see, right? If we fall apart, right, I'll be the first to put my hand up and say, listen, like, it fell apart, right? Like, and what are the reasons for it? But for now, again, I have no concerns. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. I think there's some players that are coming back into the team. Again, these are just my opinions. You can disagree with me, and if you do, that's fine. I welcome your comments, your feedback in the comments below. Let's have a discussion. Let's make it a healthy discussion. I don't like for the hatred and you're wrong and I'm right. It's just merely my opinion, right? Doesn't make me right or wrong. Won't make your opinion right or wrong. And just to note, I don't speak on behalf of all of the members of our group. I know for most of us that appear on the podcast, there may be some that do agree with my opinions and my perspective, and I surely know that there's others that aren't going to and would not agree with my opinions, or would challenge some of the topics and perspectives, and that's fine. As always, I welcome your comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow on the various platforms. We will be back next week with our regularly scheduled program. Again, unfortunately, yesterday, due to scheduling issues, we weren't able to be on, but I wanted to at least share my thoughts on the last 24 hours or 36 hours. And of course, welcome all your feedback as well. See you next week, and Viva o Sport Lisboa Benfica.